It's just things don't just happen. We have to actually take action. Without inspired, intentional action, nobody's gonna knock at the door.
Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. Whether you're searching for the one, you're madly in love, or simply curious about romantic relationships, this podcast is for you. I'm Charlene Byars. Each week, you'll hear from women, couples, and experts, and all the ins and outs on how to create your own love story. I am so passionate about this subject, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Welcome back to the Love Stories podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. I want to talk to you about this notion that our partners should love us unconditionally. Although I really believe that we can love one another unconditionally, that doesn't mean that we will desire each other unconditionally. It doesn't work that way, because loving someone unconditionally is not the same as still desiring one another. The truth is, when we don't feel good about ourselves, we let ourselves go, and we don't put effort in, and we gain weight, and we don't take care of our skin, and we don't feel like our best selves, that affects how we show up. And that will also affect how our partner looks at us and how they desire us. It's important that we make an effort with our appearance. And I don't mean that you have to be perfect, but when we don't take care of ourselves, it affects our self-esteem, because we feel less confidence, and that affects us because we know that we're not showing up our best selves. And that in return will affect how our partner desires us. And in romantic relationships, it is important that we continue desiring one another and not take that for granted. Romantic love thrives when we are attracted to each other and we show up our best selves. And it's not fair to just think that our partner should continue desiring us even though we're not putting an effort into ourselves and letting ourselves go. I really try to take care of myself, and not just because I know it's important to be healthy, but also to keep the spice and the attraction between Mark and I. That's why I go to the gym. That's why I get at least 15,000 steps a day. That's why I have self-care routine. That is why my husband works out and why we walk together. It's a gift that we give our relationship. And I want to encourage you to give that gift to your relationship too. Romantic love thrives when we desire one another. And romantic love thrives when we still have attraction for one another. Romantic love thrives when we feel our best selves. Let's talk about the tip of the week, which is mutual respect. For a thriving romantic relationship, there absolutely needs to be mutual respect. That means we don't demean or belittle each other, and we offer support instead of criticism. Respect is a two-way street, and having admiration for your partner, validating their feelings and their views is so important. Even though you may not necessarily agree with them, accepting them as equal and giving them the same consideration that you would expect for yourself, that's mutual respect and a must in relationships. I am so happy to welcome my next guest to the show. Natalia Hart is a dating and relationship coach. She helps women to reclaim their feminine energy and call in the one. After years of her own personal heartache and confusion, unable to find lasting love, she discovered how to attract the right relationship. And now she shares her secret formula with women around the world looking for the same lasting results. Natalia resides in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's happily married to the love of her life for 15 years, and she loves running, nature, and being a true foodie. One of my biggest takeaways from this conversation is how Natalia didn't give up on love or herself. Even though she has been through so much, I love how she persevered and did the inner work to heal, eventually find the love of her life, and now is able to help so many others do the same. Without any further ado, Natalia Hart.
Well, hello,
my goodness. Oh, Mama, I've been so excited to have this conversation with you because I know that you and I, we are aligned. You are a love coach and you have an amazing story how you came about and how you found your man and how you help people. So I was just so excited. And for the audience or for the viewers or whoever's listening today, I know that I just want to say that you and I also through online have been able to become, friends. So it was really exciting. I know it was really exciting that I was going to have you on today. But I actually don't know your whole love story because I know you have this love story, how you met your husband. And I don't even really know how that came about. And so I would love to start there. I want to know, Natalia, how she met her husband. But before she met her husband, how was life before? How was dating? Where did you grow up? Let's start there, Natalia. Hi, Mama.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so
Yes.
good to be here. Thank you. And
Yes.
I am originally from Argentina, but I have been living in the States for over 20 years. I'm going on 23 years now. So that's my accent.
Yeah, I love it.
Right. And my story, to make it succinct, I really never gave it much thought to this area of relationships. I always just slid into them. It was
Yeah.
something that, a guy, I met my first boyfriend in college and he was interested in me and I started dating him and that lasted almost a decade. And I was never really happy with him. Don't get me
Okay.
wrong, he was a great guy. He was a
Okay.
great guy.
How old were you? So wait a minute. So you met so prior to this first like real boyfriend, you had like little boyfriends before in high
Uh,
school or not really?
Not really, not really.
Okay.
And, I went to a private Catholic school, girls only. I grew up in a very small town where it was all about my girlfriends and I have two sisters. So I really wasn't around men that much.
Okay. Yeah. So you weren't really around boys. So you didn't really have like usually like younger women, we start having these a lot of little boy crushes, but you were preoccupied with other things. You're pretty occupied with other things. So
Yes,
you
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so you go to college. Okay, you go to college.
I
And
moved to
so
a big city all of a sudden. I
oh,
go
okay.
from super small town where everybody knew my name and we never locked the door to this million people city to study psychology in university. And
Mhm.
that's when I meet this guy. And as I
Okay.
said, he was a great guy. And I loved him as a human,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it wasn't that love that
The
that
passion, right? It wasn't the passion.
yes.
Okay. How old were you at the time, Mama? How old were you?
I met him when I was about 19.
Okay. So you meet this guy at 19. He's a really nice guy. And so what happened with him? Like how long did you guys date? What was the relationship like?
So we dated for about 3 years, four
Oh,
years. We lived
wow.
together. And then I decided to take a break because it wasn't really what I wanted. So I
Okay.
took about a 3, 4 years break, something like that. I can't remember. It was so long ago. And in those years, I did date some other guys. I got in a relationship with another guy for 2 years. That was all about passion, all
Oh,
completely
yes.
different. And but again, he wasn't it. I really didn't feel like he was it. So long story short, I go back to this guy. He was always there. He loved me from the day he saw me. I was the one for him. He waited for me. And so I got back with him. And actually, I moved to the States with him.
Oh,
And
wow.
so one day I am, and at this point, we have been together with including the break for 10 years.
Yeah, because you're with him and then you took a little break. So you took like what, a year or two break?
3 years break.
2 or
Yeah.
3 years. And then you go back to him again. And then you're like, okay, we're going to try this again. And let me ask you this, though, looking back now, when you were with him in the first time, right? Because you were 19 years old and you realize, I don't know, he's a nice guy, but I'm not feeling that passion, that love. And then you go and then you meet other guys. When you go back to him, were things a little different or were they kind of pretty much the same?
They were the same, but the thing that I craved from him was safety. I felt really safe with him. In my mind, if I was with him, I was protected. And that was really important to me, still is. You and I know, as love dating coaches, that safety is probably the number one thing that as women we crave to to flourish in a relationship. So it's good. Now it wasn't enough, but I was safe with him. When I was with him, I could be completely myself. He loved me, words and all, and it was easy. It was comfortable. I just so it was good at that level, but my soul was craving something else. So, long story short, I am in Miami and I am this like 29 years old goddess wearing this tiny Brazilian bikini, laying by the pool, crying, literally, I'm not making this out, crying because I really wanted to have an amazing relationship and I couldn't figure it out, and it was so painful. So I am there, and this guy shows up, and he's tall, handsome, and blonde. He wasn't brown. And so he starts talking to me, and he asks me out that night. And I said, well, I can't because I am in a relationship. So he starts asking me questions about the relationship. And so we leave, and then the next day I am in the laundry doing the laundry, and he shows up again. He's like, come on, let's go out, just let's go for a drink, just let's go for a drink. So I said yes, and I went out with him, and next day I told my boyfriend that that was it, that I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't do it to him. He was such a great guy, and I couldn't do it to me anymore. And that started the relationship with this guy. This guy, in hindsight, he was love bombing me. And for this woman, coming from, from Argentina and from small town, he was flying me to Puerto Rico, flying me to LA, flying me to New York, taking me on his boat to islands with champagne and all fancy stuff. It
Oh,
was
so you thought, no, Natalia, you're thinking, I just won the lottery. Like, you're probably right at the time, you're like, this is how it should be. Because when you were young, let me ask you this, because you said when you were with your boyfriend, on and off for a long time. And even though that you loved him, you truly loved him, you didn't have that passion for him. And you know what? And we both know, to have a romantic relationship, you got to have that passion with one another. And when you grew up, did you see a romance like that? Or was that just something that you always kind of just craved or didn't understand? Like, were your parents very passionate or no?
My parents were very passionate and they loved each other very much. And they had also a very unhealthy relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, not really. In movies, maybe. But no, I never, I don't know where this craving came from of having
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something else, because I didn't even know what that something else looked like,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with
I
you.
think that's interesting because I think a lot of us women, and I don't know where that actually comes from too, but like maybe that's just our, our gut, our feminine, knowing that like gosh, if we're going to be in love and we're going to be with someone, we do crave that type of passion. We want to feel wanted. We want the excitement. Not in the sense of love bombing, but we want still have that excitement. So you're in this relationship with this guy, and you're thinking at the time, at first, it's just amazing, and he's going here because you didn't know at the time that was love bombing. So
I
what ends up happening? Yeah, you had no idea. So what ends up happening with this guy? So how long does this last? When did you start noticing things were turning?
Well, I mean, things got incredible, like literally. He even had a white truck. I mean, now, all this in hindsight, at the moment, I'm not seeing anything. I'm just riding the wave. I am so busy and overwhelmed with my whole life. I am a new immigrant in the United States.
Yep.
At the same time, my dad just had passed away, and
Oh,
I am starting a new career, learning a new language, learning how to do every. So I was totally. He met me at a time where I had so much on my plate. I was working 6 days a week, all day. I won at that time. I used to do facials. I won best facial of South Florida. I was on the TV. I It was like so much. I got my first car. My It was, everything was new, everything, and he was part of that. So I really didn't have the emotional bandwidth to analyze it. I just went along with the ride, with the ride, and he kept, treating me amazingly. He'll bring me gifts and all that, and eventually that ended up with us getting married. Like, I don't know, 5 months after.
5 months. Okay, so now you're in this whirlwind of a relationship with this guy, and it's just fast and
It's
exciting. And
everything is
you
fast.
can't even think.
Fast.
You're not even thinking.
I don't even have time to sleep. I'm literally, like, it was so fast. Everything happened so fast, and my life changed like that in a matter of a moment. The moment that I took the plane to came to the States, everything changed. So this was another thing added to my plate.
So that happens. So that now 5 months later, you guys get married.
Yes, so that happens. We get married, and that's when things start to change. He started to, I mean, I had seen up until then, after about 2 months, but you know how it is, that if you haven't done, that's why I love what we do, because we save the ladies so much time and pain. Because if I have had this knowledge, I mean, I wouldn't have gone through what I went through after the marriage. So after about 2 months, he started to show me that side of him, that nobody was good enough for him. His mom wasn't good enough. His best friend was a womanizer. His best other friend was cheating on his wife. Everybody was bad in his eyes. And I thought one day, studying psychology and all that, but as I said, I was in this fast lane where I really didn't have time. And we were having sex like 3 times a day. So my hormones were out of whack.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah, you weren't thinking straight. Of course you weren't. Yeah.
I wasn't at
Yeah.
all. But even with all that, kind of saw the red flags. I thought, I wonder if one day he's going to turn to me and start to find faults on me, because this guy,
Oh.
I thought about that. He probably came with a gift, with a trip to Bahamas, with champagne and foie gras, and
Natalia, what is that? Why does women, we really do that? We really do that. We
I have
don't,
a bookcase. I'm telling you, I went through a bookcase. I really, yeah. I
we
made all.
actually do because that makes sense to me. I'm telling you, that really makes sense. We find ourselves, often like, right, we're in these relationships. And if a relationship is fast and quick and exciting, you know, there are moments that we do feel those red flags. We feel like something's a little off, but it's okay. It's okay. We ignore that. We ignore that. But there's if you really take a moment to look back and really ask yourself, did you notice something back then? Yeah. Usually women can say, yeah, I kind of did. But I really thought it might be different with me. Or like you said, we're just going so fast, we're not thinking about it. Okay,
Yeah.
so now you're married, but you're already noticing, but he hadn't really pointed at you yet. He was pointing at everybody else was a problem.
Right. And so I get married, and he starts to find fault on me. I couldn't, and I also find out after we are married that he has a 17-year-old daughter that he abandoned. He did. This man is from France originally. He was born and raised in France and moved to the States like me when he was in his 20s. When the girlfriend was pregnant, and he never looked back. He never, gave the girl the last name. He never took ownership. So that's another thing that is being thrown on my lap. And so it got worse and worse and worse to the point where literally all the clothing in my closet that I was allowed to use was mini skirts like these and tube tops. I was like 100 pounds. My hair was falling in chunks. I couldn't cook well enough. I couldn't be good in bed enough. I couldn't dress well enough. I couldn't speak well enough. My job as an esthetician, he'll say, you just rub these people's faces. Everything about me became a reason for him to put me down. So, and I mentioned briefly that my parents' relationship was very unhealthy. And there is a reason why I said that, because they abused me emotionally and physically and verbally. So I was used to that.
You were used to that, yes.
So I could feel that.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes. So I didn't like it, didn't feel good as when I was a child, but I was used to that. So it was the kind of yucky feeling that it was very familiar. So I was like, I can deal with this because, if there is somebody that can deal with abuse, it's me because that's what I survived. Now my health was taking a turn. For the first time in 31 years of life, I had never visited a hospital in my life. I got sick, I got precancer. They had to take a chunk of my uterus. It got really, really nasty. And so I started to ask for help, and I went to a therapist.
Oh, you did?
I
Because you're here in the United States and you really didn't have people around you, right? You
I
didn't have
know
people around
he
you.
got rid of all my friends. He got rid of all my activities. I used to travel to Miami to learn how to dance, Latin dances. He made me stop doing everything. I The only thing I could do was to be with him and work. The rest, I couldn't do anything. My friends, they were all bad. I couldn't see them. So pretty much he isolated me. And I allowed him to do all that. I'm not
Well,
saying.
I'm not saying. Well, let's talk about that for a second, Natalia. It's not that you. Of course, it takes two people. Like no one can force us to do anything, but we really have to understand the mindset, right? Like where you actually were as a woman, where you're at. Like I can see so many women have been in situations that you know they almost lost themselves, their strength.
Yeah.
And if you get in these manipulating, toxic type of relationship, it's like a slow drip. Like little by little, they know how to manipulate you. They know how to mess with you mentally. So you find so many people find themselves in these relationships, and once they finally get out, they look back and they're like, how did that even happen? I know how that happens. I know that how that happens. So I don't think it was just that you were just allowing it. I think that you didn't even know what to do. I mean, it must have been so scary because you're married, you are, trying to please this man, and nothing you're doing is pleasing him, but he's obviously a very, very toxic man. But sometimes, even with their toxicity, when they're toxic, there's things that they do, and you could talk about that. There's things that they do that they give you like little breadcrumbs, right? Little breadcrumbs for you to think, oh, okay, he loves me. He just means well for me. And if we are not strong and if we are not in a certain place in our lives, that can happen to a lot of us women, Natalia, seriously. So I
Yes,
really understand this. I really understand this.
yes.
So, okay, so now you're very sick and you're in this relationship, but
I'm very sick. I go to a therapist, and as soon as I get in the room and I start talking and telling her how I'm feeling and all that, she said, "You have to leave him. He's gonna kill you." And I said, you know what? No, she doesn't understand me. So I went and hired another one. And she looked at me and said, "Is he beating you? It was that bad. I looked so fragile. I was like skin and bones. It was like I was a shell of myself." And she said the same thing. She said, "You have to leave him. You are going to end up," I remember what she said, "you are going to end up obese, depressed, and suicidal. You need to leave him." And I said to myself, no, she doesn't understand me because she's American. Like, I need to go and find me an Argentinian one because she will be able to understand my culture. So I did that. And yes, three psychologists. And she said the same thing. But even with that, I didn't leave. Now, what happened, thank God, and I hope your audience now understands why am I going to say what I'm going to say in a second. um, what happens is, as I said before, I was used to the abused. That's what I knew. To me, that was a lot like love. That was a lot like love. It was very unhealthy attention, but it was attention, and it's the only attention I got as a child. So it felt very familiar. Now, something that I couldn't deal with, and he didn't know this about me, is cheating. So one day, he's a airline pilot, commercial airline pilot. So he was out of town a lot. On top of that, and so he wasn't supposed to be home. And I go to work, and then I forgot something. So I go back home to pick up something, and I found him with a flight attendant. And so I remember the day I found him, and that to me was what drew the line and what gave me the strength to finally leave, because that I couldn't take. And when I was there in my car, little with the hands on the steering wheel, and I am looking at my house, and I see two cars, and one car is his, and the other car is the other lady's car. And I just thought to myself, I said, "Natalia, this is your gift. This is your way out. You have to use it. You got a window, take it." And I also talked to myself, and I said, "You know what? You are going to learn how to be an adult in a relationship and how to be healthy in a relationship. This is not gonna be just something, a bad story. This is your beginning story. This is your origin story. This is gonna be different." And that's what I did. I left. Thank God I never let go of my condo. And thank God I never gave him a key of my condo. When you are like, I don't know why, you know?
yeah, yeah, you don't know why, but it's just, yeah. I mean, certain things happen for our lives for protection that are there for a reason.
So he'll
Absolutely.
come and bang at my door, and he couldn't get in. So that gave me some time to figure things out. And so, yes, so we got divorced. and I started to do the work in this area of dating and relationship. Now, mind that this is like almost 20 years ago, so there weren't podcasts, there weren't seminars, there wasn't, YouTube, no face, nothing. It
And
was
no love coaches really back then, like people that do the work that we do. That wasn't really a thing back then. It was more, you had to go to the typical psychologist, right?
right. So I started just, the first thing I did is I got a book and I read that book. And then through church, one of my friends in church, he introduced me to a life coach, Heidi. I will never forget her name, Heidi from Switzerland, I think she was. And she helped me to go through the divorce. And but she really didn't help me about my healing on dating and relationship and all that. But through the divorce, I needed, because again, I was by myself. It was just
Because
me.
was he fighting the divorce, or was
At the beginning, he was, and then he wasn't. When he got to terms that I wasn't kidding, that I wanted out, he got very, very aggressive. That he wanted the divorce right there. He wanted it yesterday,
okay?
and
Okay. And how
so
long were you guys married for?
over 2 years.
Okay, so it was a quick marriage, two
Yeah,
years. But
everything
man,
everything happened like a tornado that came and left. It
well,
was
I can imagine those 2 years though felt like forever. Oh my goodness, going through that for 2 years.
well, as you said, he was good. That's the bad part of toxic men,
Hmm.
is that they're not all bad, and they have a way to manipulate us with.
They're masters.
Yes, they give us a little bit, so we get our hopes back, and we are happy again, and then they take it from us, and that's when we crave it even more than before. So that's how they create the mechanism, is through giving us something to make us happy, and then they take it away, so we get anxious and all, confused, and our nervous system gets completely out of whack, and then they give it back, and then that's the mechanism. So
Yes.
it's not all bad, but when you look on the overall of the relationship after a couple of years, yes, there is a lot more bad. Than the bad is really bad. Nothing can compensate for what I went through.
No,
Nothing.
and the good though, and honestly, the good is actually it's another form of manipulation.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's the good. It might at the time feel what you want or what you want to hear, what you're needing, because we're so deprived, we're so in this toxic relationship. I mean, again, like I said a little earlier, like any little breadcrumb, you're like, oh, okay, he loves me. But it's all a form of manipulation, because obviously you and I are doing what we're doing now, and thank you for sharing this story. We're doing what we're doing because that's not love. That's not how a relationship should be. That
Absolutely.
is, I mean, relationships are not supposed to be toxic. Relationships are not supposed to be controlling. Relationships are no, 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 no. So then you get out of this marriage and you realize, okay, this is not going to be my story. I don't know how, I don't know what I'm going to do, but there's something needs to change because I need to change because I can't ever do that again. So what has starts happening with you, mama?
Well, as I said, I started to what we call do the work. I started to do the work on my own. I had a big, big leverage because I studied psychology. I was trained as a psychotherapist. And I also had been deep for years, deep into studying Eastern philosophies. So I had a lot of tools on my toolbox to use to help me. So at the beginning, I used all that to get me back on my feet. And once I did that. Once I got to a place where I was, calm again, and I was feeling like myself again, and all that. I started to I started to learn how to be, an adult in relationships. I started to learn how to communicate my needs, how to, mostly that was the area that I needed the most help, because I will not communicate my needs. I will just shrink, because that's what I did as a child. And so I needed to learn how to start to speak up for myself in relationship, because never mind that the rest of my life was great. I was doing great at work. I was, when I had my friends were great. I loved them. I was exercising. I was like learning. At that point I knew three languages. I had, businesses my whole life. I mean, the rest of my life was great. It's this particular area that was completely messed up.
which
So
it's which is such a huge part of our area, because the way that we, our relationships that we have with the people that we love, in our romantic relationships, I mean, obviously, as you see, it shapes everything. Because if we are in a toxic relationship and it is draining us and we are not happy, there is no way that we overall can really be our best selves. There's just no way, because
well,
you're kind of.
the way it happened to me, and maybe somebody can relate to that. I was high performing at all levels, but my physical health was the one that took the toll. My immune system was shut, and as I said, I was skin and bones, and I was losing my hair. I had to get surgery. I mean, that's how it expressed it to me. But the rest, when I got out of this and I told people what I went through, they couldn't believe me. They're like, how you were going through that, and you were great. We could have never, ever known, just the way I am. I just put things in compartments. Work is work, and I have very high integrity. My work ethic is unbelievable, and I am there, and I am going to give it my best. And in a way, was doing that was a way to forget about what was going
Yes.
on.
Yeah. Your
Uh,
persona, that's the shield that you put on when you kind of went out into the world.
Yes, and
Yes.
with my friends, I'll be the best friend I can be. And I have always been service oriented, and hence I went to what I do for a living. And so I was always there for them. They never, and exercising has always been my way to blow out steam. So I, if you had seen my Facebook, it didn't exist. I didn't have a Facebook, but if you had existed and you had seen it, you would see me traveling all over, being cute as hell with this super hot, handsome husband, living the good life, being successful. And that's why, it was so life changing at so many levels, because it really was a crash course on compassion and kindness, and really understanding that we cannot take other people, at face value. There is so much that is going behind the surface, and a lot of people are hurting, and a lot of people they have coping mechanisms that they can still function. But so you have high functioning alcoholics, high functioning drug addicts, high functioning, you know um, women that are in abusive relationships. So that was huge for me. It opened up my eyes to be. I pretty much got to a fork in the road where I felt like I had a decision to make. I was either going to get better or I was going to get bitter. And I chose to get better.
Yes.
I chose
Yes.
higher road. And that's what
That
I
was a decision. That was a decision that you made.
chose.
Because Natalia, because really, I mean, there's so many women that I have known too that on the outside, everything looks great. We do that. Us women do that. We want to, present ourselves, with our best selves, because really the reality is that if you are in relationships that are draining you, that are not good, we don't even know where to start. We don't even know how to have that conversation or who to trust or what to do. So it's almost easier to just, like we said a little earlier, to put on that face, put on that persona, put on that shield when we go out in the world. A lot of times, when you see people breaking up and you're like, oh, I thought you guys were amazing. I thought you guys had a great relationship. But the truth is that's not true, because I learned this a long, long time ago. The reality is that really nobody ever knows what's really going on behind closed doors. You
Absolutely.
don't. You don't. You can see something in the front, but you don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I could see that was also, trust me, that I feel that was another protectionism for you, that you had to, like, okay, my house, my home life is falling apart. I mean, this is bad. This is horrible. But at least I can control these other things, because you couldn't control your home life, but you were trying to control other areas of your life. That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. So you get out of this relationship, you decide to yourself, you made a decision as a woman. You're like, enough is enough. There has to be a better way. I have to do some things different. So you went inwards and you started getting some help. You started reading books. How did you go from going into a relationship like that to being able to get out in the world again and start dating again? What was your life like when you decided to do that? Did you start finding, like, were you different, or did it still take you a moment?
Well, what happened is I also made a promise to myself that I wasn't going to date anybody for a whole year. So all this was totally intuitive and based on my knowledge in psychology and philosophy. That's it. And so I said, I'm not going to date for a year. I went back to Argentina for a month and a half and I just stayed with my family. And when I come back, I was part of a big coaching company back then in Florida. And one of the girls, one of my friends that we were doing together these coaching seminars, invites me to be part of a dating and relationship coaching group for women. So I said yes. And soon enough, I started coaching the women. And time goes by. So I am not only doing the work for myself, now I am helping other women as I go. This is like 2005. And after a few months, I start to see a pattern that a lot of the ladies I am coaching, they don't want to go dating. And so I decided to walk the talk and I started to put myself on an online website. At that point, there weren't dating apps, it was in a computer. So I did that. And as a result, I went on the 200 first dates in 2 years.
Wow.
And so those 200 first dates in 2 years was my incubator for me to learn, practice, get to know men, get to know what I liked, what I didn't like, all in real life. This wasn't something that I got out of books because, as I mentioned, from age 5 to age 30, I had been buried in books through here.
Yes.
Going nowhere. So I decided to drop into my heart, to drop into the present moment, and go. And I had a quote from Roosevelt, "The Man in the Arena." And I don't know if you have read it, you probably have, but it's like the merit doesn't belong to the man that is giving orders and talking from above the mountain. The merit belongs to the man that is in the arena, that is falls once and twice and gets up and keeps going. And so that was my inspiration. I love that. And also a quote from Marianne Williamson: "We are not only smaller than we think we are also bigger than we think we are. What we are really afraid is of our greatness." So those two phrases were my left and hand right. And
Your mantra, that you're like, that is my mantra. You're like, I'm going for this, because that is so true. Because you can literally, we can read and we can learn, but to actually learn how to swim, you got to jump in the water. Right? You can't read how to learn how to swim. To actually learn how to swim, you got to get in that water. So you decided enough was enough. I really have to put this into action and
right.
find out what it is that I'm enjoying. Really, man, oh, this is fascinating. That is fantastic. So, what did you find out with dating so many men?
The first thing that shocked me was, well, the first thing that I found out is never bake a guy a cake before you meet him, because I did that for the first guy that I was going to meet on a date. I baked him a cake to give you an idea that I started from scratch.
You
Okay,
started from scratch, literally scratch, baking a cake.
I baked him cake, and the guy canceled on me the night before.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. And then what I got is that it was super interesting to me. The things that were showing up for me, like how judgmental I was, how close-minded I was, how I needed to open my heart, how guarded I was. That was huge. Like I will go on a date and a guy will say something that I didn't like, and that's it. Even one guy, I met him at a coffee shop. I don't know if Starbucks was going. Probably it was a Starbucks or something like that. I can't remember if Starbucks was going on back then. And I ordered a matcha drink. And he looks at me and he says, "Oh, that's tea with milk." And to me, that was cheapening my drink. It's like, no, this is a green matcha. That's it. I don't know what
What was it? You were very sensitive. You were like, I say, don't tell me that's a green with milk. It's not, it's a matcha.
So I had to learn all that and unpack
Yes.
it and do the work, and get real with myself and say,
Well, what I love about this, no, I love that you're saying this, because we have a lot of our listeners who are single ladies, and that's why I was so excited to bring you on today, because I know that you are a love coach and you are just dropping some good stuff here. What I'm
yes,
hearing you say is the main value, truly what you got out of the dating, is you got to learn yourself. You got
absolutely.
to see how you were showing up, how close, how close you were, how not friend, all the things. That to me is the number one. Like, we got to find out, right? What it is, who we are, how we're showing up, and what it is that we're actually really looking for.
Right.
So you're going through this process, and you really, like, that's amazing, Mama, that you were able to kind of like look in the mirror and say, wait a minute. I
That's
I keep I keep finding myself, being critical. I keep finding myself, not trusting, not enjoying myself, with all the things. How long did it take for you to really start shifting? Because you said you did this about 2 years, right?
right.
And in those 2 years, was there a guy that you ever kind of had a relationship with, or not so much? You were more into the process of just,
A couple of guys that friends hooked me up because I was doing the dating site, and I also started to nurture my. I was lucky that as doing facials, I was working with a ton of women, so they all wanted to be my friend. So it was about me saying yes to parties, and pretty soon after I got divorced, I had a group of friends again. So I was lucky like that. So I told my friends and clients, I'm dating. So if you know a guy that you think will be a good match for me, please, I'm going on blind dates. So I just did everything that my heart told me to do. I was experimenting, I was reinventing myself. That was Natalia 3.0. The song of those years of my 30s was I did it my way. That's it. That I was going to do it my way, but not my way, my lower self, my higher self. I was going to really, really connect to my higher self, and I was going to do it my way. So I did that. So they were introducing me to some friends. So though I went on a couple of dates, but it didn't work out. My main issue was lack of chemistry. I really didn't have chemistry with most of the guys. Anyway, I do that, da, 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 and then I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada. That was all happening in South Florida. When I moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, I transferred my eHarmony account to Nevada because you could change the location like you do now. And so I moved here. And when I moved here, I made a big change in my life. I decided to start running. So I moved here in December and I started running on the treadmill on the gym. And the dating wasn't working for me in Las Vegas for a very silly reason, but I couldn't figure it out the city. They will be like, okay, I'll meet you at this restaurant on this address, and I will show up on the address, but in a different town. I didn't know that you had the same address in Las Vegas. It was so complicated for me. So I said, okay, just take a break. Get to know the city. Get settled in the city and all that, and then get back on dating. So I wasn't really dating. I got myself out of the dating apps. I met a few guys, really nice, but again, no chemistry. And so I started running on the gym. And one day I said, you know what, Natalia, it's time for you to start expanding yourself. So I went home and I joined a real live running group. Go to my first running meeting. We were going to be running on the mountains outside of Las Vegas. And I am waiting on the parking lot. We were meeting at the parking lot at the coffee shop. And I see a guy coming on a truck. And the girls that were there with me, that they were regulars at the running club, they're like, oh, that's Richard. And I looked at him and I'm like, dang, he's hot. I went like ding, 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 ding. And I'm like, oh my God, I thought I was a lesbian by that time, you know? I couldn't have chemistry with any guy. So, sure enough, we parked, and at the same time, I said, oh my God, he's hot. And then I told myself, Natalia, hold your horses. We need to know who this guy is, how he's. I was looking for a great guy. And when I say that, to me, that meant a guy that was kind, a guy that cared for people, a guy that was an already made man. I didn't want to grow up a child. I wanted to be with a guy that knew what he wanted, and that was me. And on the rest of his life, I wanted an adult, a man that was.
A man that's emotionally available, a high value man that is not, that is not in his boy energy. He's definitely in his masculine and he knows what he wants. Oh, yes, of course. But the main thing though, because remember, this is one thing that you struggle with for so long because people don't understand. You can't just create chemistry sometimes. It's either there's something there or there's not. Sometimes often you can meet someone, right? And maybe you don't have the initial chemistry, but as time goes by, it builds. You're like, woof, when you get to know that person, that really builds like that. But to have that automatically, it's really special. It's really special that you had that. But I understand what you're saying. You're like, okay, I have a little chemistry with this one, but don't slow down, Natalia, because we don't want to get in a bad situation again.
Because you need to be smart here. You need to choose
Yes.
wisely.
Yes. Yes.
So the rest is history. 15 years later, we are together, and he just kept showing up and raising the bar. And at
Mm.
the same time, I would like to share something, if you allow me, because I think it's
Yes.
important maybe for some women, because
Yes.
I shared all my pain. I mean, the ladies are probably feeling so sorry for me right now. Don't feel sorry. I'm great now.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
so happy that all that happened to me because it made me who I am. And now I can really understand my clients. It's not that, that I don't can relate. I totally get it because I have been through everything. Now, when I met my Richard, I thought I had done all the work. I thought I was healed. I thought I was perfectly in a great place, and I wasn't. I didn't realize, and that could only showed up in a place where I was with a guy that I really liked. I started to get insecure that he was cheating on me out of nowhere because he was giving me no reason for that.
This was you. This was just something, your insecurity. Yep.
And I had never been like that before my ex-husband cheating. I never even thought that I could cheat on me. That was something that it never I mean, when I found him with another woman, I was like, oh wow, this is new. I mean, so that wasn't a thing for me, but apparently it affected me more than I thought. It's showing up like 4 years later. So, and what I want to say is he created, we co created the right environment where it was really easy for me to heal. Held my hand. He didn't just stroke me and say, oh, you're gonna be, no, he was, he was like, I expect more of you, kind of holding my hand. I wish you were more confident, but he didn't run away. He stayed there with me and he helped me to move through that, and he didn't change who he was. He was just this confident, mature man that and he and I think that is very important to pinpoint, that with the right guy we can finish up the healing, because that's what happened to me. I finished it up with him, and and the relationship, in all honesty, um I always like to say so many things. Oh my God, I can talk about forever. You and I can talk about forever. But so many women are like, oh my God, I want a guy that goes to the same church I go to. Okay. I tried to get my Richard to go to church with me, and he did go because I kind of pushed. He did go, and he was on his phone. And I remember I'm looking at him on his phone, and I'm like, just let him be, Natalia. Don't. Well, I found out at a later time that he listens to church on his truck when he's driving around. So, yeah, it didn't happen exactly as I wanted to. But the main thing for me is that he has a spiritual life and he's connected to a higher self. He does it with me at church or not, it's not really the most important thing. It is important, but it's not the most important thing. So that's the kind of relationship we have. We really have our priorities, and we allow each other to come around to do those things in the way that feels natural to each other.
Oh, that's beautiful. How has that I know that this is now, I want you to share about that. I know that this is what you do now. You help women. And how has that experience truly, from going from what you just said, from the toxic relationship to dating all these men to really not having that chemistry, right? To meeting Richard, to allowing yourself to, be vulnerable with him, to trust him, to do the rest of your healing. How has that also helped you? I mean, I know that's a big question, but when it comes to women, like women that are listening to here and they're relating to this, they're like, yeah, Natalia, I really can see myself. Like I haven't really had that type of relationship that I wanted before. I mean, where do you start with women so they can hear? You know, what would you say to them?
I'm not sure I understand your question, but like, what will I say to a woman that wants a relationship, like the
She
one?
wants a relationship. She's been struggling too. She hasn't really, hasn't really trusted herself or trusted another man. I mean, the type of women that come to you, what are they looking for?
Well, the main thing that I see with the women that I attract is that they don't really believe it's possible for them.
That's okay. That's good. Right.
And it doesn't really show up in that straightforward way sometimes. It's not like they are like, oh, I don't believe, like that's going to happen to me. It can show up like, comments they make, like, like, oh, yeah, if I could find the right guy, or they don't believe it's there for them.
They don't believe it's possible. It's kind of like, well, if it's meant to be, it can just happen.
Right.
What
And
would you say to her?
so that's very immature. I mean, I'm sorry, with all my love and compassion, that is a 5-year-old talking. It's just things don't just happen. We have to actually take action. Without inspired intentional action, things nobody's going to knock at the door. I mean, that's what we always say, and that applies so much to that comment. Things, we have people have the tendency to say, oh yeah, she got it because it was meant for her. No, listen to me, listen to all the things I have gone through. I married when I was almost 40 for the second time. So, and all the work I had to do. No, things don't just happen. We have to really, really be know what we want, and then be very intentional and work diligently towards it. And we have to develop different kind of character traits in order to do that. The Natalia that I was when I was 19, that met this my first boyfriend, she could have never, I wouldn't even have looked at Richard, for God's sake. I had a list like this of how the guy had to look like, what kind of job he had to have, how much money he needed to make, what kind of car. I was into Mercedes Benz when I was really young, so he had to, I mean, and Richard, he didn't check any of those boxes. He has long hair. He likes country music. He drives a truck. He's barefoot all the time. He's vegetarian. I'm from Argentina, the kingdom of steak. I mean,
You know what? I love that you're saying that. No, no, Taya, I know this. Listen, I love what you're saying because often we are our biggest, blockers, because we have this list of all the external things that we think that we're looking for. But when it really comes down to it, and that's why you're doing the work you're doing, that's why I know that how you help women. When it really comes down to it, it really comes down to like, how you want to feel with the man. Like what are the values that you guys share together? Because I talk about companionship or partnership. What type of partnership do you guys want? And when we don't allow ourselves to be open, right? And we don't allow ourselves to heal and heal ourselves, then we're not open to the right guy. Sometimes the right guy for us can be standing right in front of us, but we can't even see it, Natalia, right? You can't even see it. So I want you to tell the women then that are here and that are listening in the sense of like, okay, I love that you just said it's really important to do the work on yourself, to
we have
understand, to be open, understand what it is that you're wanting to feel. Because if you're just like you said earlier, we're just saying, oh, it's just going to happen. Ladies, it really doesn't happen that way. Or you'll end up, okay, or how about this? Or you'll end up with a person that you're not going to have that alignment with. You're going to end up in the relationship that you're not going to be happy with. So, so talk about that.
So the as I said, the first step I think is doing the work and making sure that the story that we are telling ourselves is an empowering story. So I don't know how it's going to happen. We don't need to lie. We don't need to say, "Oh yeah, it's going to happen," if we don't believe it. But we can say, "You know what? I don't believe it's going to happen, but I'm going to do everything I can, so when I die in peace, that I have used up all my resources and I have learned as much as I could." So that's the first thing. The second thing is, um, open up your life, expand your life. We keep going, mostly when we are adults, we keep going on the same circles over and over and over. We keep going to the same clubs, we keep seeing the same friends, we keep
Yes, same
seeing the
patterns.
same thing. We go to the same supermarket, we go to the same gym. So just make a commitment to yourself to spice up your life. If you are a runner like I am, go run with a different running club. If you go to this regular supermarket, go to the supermarket, a little bit farther away from you. Yes, of course, it's going to take something out of you, but that's where the real good juicy things happen. It's out of our comfort zone.
Oh, I
So
love it. Get out of your comfort zone, ladies. Oh my goodness. Yes.
So that
Yes.
will be the second thing or third thing. And the fourth thing is invest in learning how to be successful in relationships. There is no shame on that. I didn't have idea how to talk to a man, how to relate to a man, how to get what I wanted from a man. I had no clue. I was just lucky as hell that I was super good looking. So I was lucky. But, other than that, that's all I had for me was my good looks. And so learn how to communicate, learn how men think, how men are, what they want. So invest your time, your energy, your resources in learning about men, learning about the dynamics between men and women, learn about being a sovereign individual inside of a relationship, so we don't lose ourselves. That's very, very important, and I know it sounds like a lot, but it's it's fun. And if you're practicing it, and it's fun. And maybe that's the last thing: have fun with it. Forget about finding the man. I found my husband when I wasn't dating.
Yes, when you were least looking for him, but you were still putting yourself out there. You were trying different things.
Yes.
You were learning, you were healing, that's what's really important. You were actually putting yourself out there, but you weren't in a, like maybe before, a desperate state. Like, oh, I have to find a man, or where is he? Is it could be right. No, you just kind of allowed it to be. And when you did that, you see Mr. Richard.
I think for me, for my kind of personality, actually
Yes.
going on dates probably was what was turning me off.
Mm.
Because I felt like I was going on to be interviewed. I felt like I was going to be scrutinized. And so I always had to look perfect. I always had to just be smiley and have the perfect makeup, the perfect silk blouse, and all gorgeous. And I think that was taken away from my experience of really being present. So there is a solution for that: is expand your world. Go to museums by yourself, go to, parks, um, wherever it is. There are so many things. And the good part is that when you do that, you're probably going to meet somebody that at least has that thing in common with you. Because with Richard, that's we bonded over running. We would run together a lot. We start to run together and run and run and run, and then next thing we know, we are, as I call it, we are kissing, and we're ready.
Next thing you know, it is fireworks.
I
Oh,
know,
that
I
was
miss those times.
amazing. Oh, I love your story. And you guys, I was going to keep her longer today. And then she tells me, which she should know better. She's like, I have a hard stop today. I have to get off the phone. I mean, not the
I
phone,
know, I
this,
have to go to diet, otherwise we
I
always
got to,
talk for hours on.
or we would keep on going. Well, don't you just love her? No, seriously, how can women that are resonating to this story, that are listening to this, and they're like, oh my goodness, this sounds like me or parts of me, how can they get a hold of you, Mama? How can they work with you? How can they get in your world?
The best way is to go to my website,
Hmm.
www.nataliahartcoaching.com. Everything is there. Links to my YouTube, links to my calendar if they want to book a call, links to my social media. I'm everywhere. I have hundreds of training videos out there on the internet. So, yeah, that would be the best way.
So you help women that are looking for love, women that, what type of women do you help, hon?
I help women to reclaim their feminine energy and call in the one. So pretty much the process is first I support them with becoming the one they are looking for, and there we go from there.
Fantastic. You guys seriously get in her world. She's amazing. She's actually a friend of mine. We become friends.
Um,
I'm a huge fan of her. The work that she's doing is so amazing. It's helped so many people. I just want to say thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your story. Oh my, I knew a little bit about it, but I had no idea. Mama, you have been through some stuff. And I just love, love, love your relationship with your husband. And I love that he is actually somebody that you said before. It wasn't someone that you would, normally pick, but he
mhm.
ended up being the love of your life.
Yeah.
Ladies, listen to that. Listen to that. It wasn't normally someone that would, technically, physically check, even though he's hot, but check these
Yes,
boxes.
not a type at all. No. Mm-mm.
But he ended up being actually her type. That's her type.
Absolutely. And it was
Hmm.
who he is.
Who he is. How is your relationship?
And
Like,
then
how are you guys?
I mean, the guy was super hot. Let's
He was
go.
hot. Yeah, yeah. How is love now? Has it been like how are you guys? Everything's great. You guys are,
It's just I don't want to sound too cheesy. There are challenges, of course. There
of
are all,
course, yes, of
but
course.
that keeps getting better. This
Oh, that's
man is
awesome.
unbelievable. Unbelievable. I always said he wouldn't read a book to save his life. And he's more enlightened than I am. And I read like 5 books a month.
Right.
And I have gone through so much training. And
Oh,
he just gets it, you
he
know?
gets it.
He
Yeah.
just gets it. He just gets it.
Wow.
He's like soundboard. He's funny. He's witty.
I
He's
love it.
just, he'll, he's vegetarian, for example, but he believes,
Yeah, yeah.
and
But
he
that's your man, mama. That is your man. Oh, I love it.
your
No, I
husband
could.
is awesome too. You have a great relationship too.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. And you know what? It was the same thing. That's why we're doing what we're doing, because I had to go through the whole process and do the work. And hopefully, with what we're doing, we can help women, get there faster,
Yeah,
and right, get there faster and not waste all the years and all the time. I always say we're just a couple 2 steps ahead of you. And there's things that we can help you with to get you there. So
uh,
thank you so much. Thank you so much. You guys definitely follow her. And thank you so much. And I love you, my sweet friend. Thank you.
I love you too. Thank you. My honor.
That's a wrap. What an incredible journey Natalia went through. and how she took her own trials and tribulations to push through and not give up on love and take what she learned and the mistakes that she made now to help women not go through the same mistakes, but be empowered to find the right man from the start. Wow. Thank you, Natalia. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.